Let's go ahead and start at the beginning for those people who might just be watching this as a recorded class. This is the, excuse me. This is the Customizing the Overview and Brackets with XML class. So we're going to be taking a look at exactly how to make some of these fancy edits that some people might have seen from other people's overviews. And we'll go into detail on it, but it really isn't a whole lot to talk about, so that's why I scheduled the class for 1 hour. I'm actually expecting it to take about a half hour, and then the other half hour for questions and answers in case anybody has any. So first of all, what do I mean by customizing the overview and brackets? It's not technically a graphical customization, but it's more of a formatting and layout customization. And if you follow my mouse cursor, which you should also be able to see on the stream, while I mouse over some of these names, you could see a little bit of the customization there as I mouse over people. You'll see that, first of all, and I could also mouse over them in space, their information is not all on one line, it's on multiple lines. Some of it is colorized, some of it is bolded. I actually bolded the name and then put the corporation and alliance as colorized on the second line, and then the ship type and ship name on a third line. And the distance thing is actually not part of the customization, it's always shown there. But if you really wanted to, you could also put that distance onto a fourth line, which is actually one of the changes I'm going to show you during this class. And also, some of you might have already noticed that there's colorization up in the tabs here. So my tar tab is in red, my nav tab's in light green, min is in white, and so on. So we are going to be talking about exactly how to do that and how to make your own nifty little customized overview and brackets. And for those of you who are pretty new to Eve, brackets just means the things that you see out in space. These things that I'm mousing over now, those are called brackets. Now, to be able to do this, you do have to have a little bit of knowledge of, I would just say basic knowledge of some HTML. And don't let that scare you away, though, because we're going to be going over exactly how to do it, so that even if you don't know HTML, if you didn't know it previously, then you could still see exactly what are the changes you need to make to do these customizations. So there's actually two places where we can do customizations, and near the end of the class I'll also go over a few caveats. There's actually a bug that you may or may not have to be aware of when you do these customizations, and I'll show that as well, but it's nothing like really serious. So don't let that scare you away either. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the colorization of the overview tabs. These tabs right here. Those are actually really stupidly easy to customize. And you don't have to do any editing of any exported XML files and so on and so forth, like what we're going to be doing later on to customize these brackets. To colorize your overview tabs, all you have to do is open up your overview menu and go to Open Overview Settings. Go to the Overview Tabs tab. And you can see that I have some kind of weird looking stuff in here. Those of you who already know some HTML might already recognize what I have in here. Those of you who don't, these are essentially just basic HTML tags. And that's pretty much it to colorize your overview tabs. A lot of people just didn't realize you were able to do that. So I'll go ahead and type it into the Class.E-UNI chat channel so that everybody can actually see. But for example, this first overview tab that I called tar for targeting, I just prefixed the word tar with color equals red in angle brackets, and then postfixed it with /color in angle brackets. And that's just basic HTML write-up for changing the color of something. And what I'm going to do is just copy the whole thing and paste it into the class. Whoops, I guess it didn't go all the way in, so I'll just type it out. Color equals Ted. And that's essentially what it looks like. You want the text to be colorized on the inside, and then you just want to surround it with what is essentially just an HTML color tag, and that will colorize your overview tabs. One thing I haven't tried, which was something that I wanted to try in this class, was will it accept hexadecimal codes? For example, will it accept color equals OXFF4000? So when you press apply, it'll get applied right away, and you see there that the tar just got completely wiped out. So it doesn't accept it that way. How about with a hash in front? Nope. Okay, so apparently it might only take the named colors. So there are a few colors with specific names that it will accept. You know, all the basic colors it should accept. Red, orange. I set these to light green. Light green is actually an ID, a color ID that it accepts. Sarli's asking, does it need quoting for hex? Very possibly, but since it didn't really need quoting in here, well, actually, let's go ahead and just try it anyway. So the things to try is FF4000. If you don't know what this format is, don't really worry about it. Just you could try just the plain color names in here. And the other method or format to try is with a hash. And yeah, apparently it doesn't take either of those. So I just bring it back to red. Okay, so this second one I just set a color equals light green within angle brackets, and then of course the slash color within angle brackets at the end. The third one for min I just set to color equals white. This window is kind of small and I don't think I can move. Yeah, I can't actually resize the those actual tabs. But yeah, this third one's color equals white. This fourth one I set to color equals yellow. The fifth one I set to color equals orange. And there are some sites on the web where you could actually see a bunch of, well, like a list of all the default colors. If you just go to Google and look for HTML color names, we'll probably find it for us. Here we go. Chances are the well, whatever's interpreting this, the E-UNI might not actually recognize all of these colors, even though they are the HTML standards, but you could give them a try. You could try to set your color to rosy brown or peach puff or something like that. So yeah, just give it a try. And if it doesn't work, then just pick another hopefully more normal quote color and see if that works. You know, try Alice blue, try aquamarine, or so on. Okay, so that is one part of our customization. That's just the overview tabs. The other part of the customization are the actual brackets and space. If I point towards the gate, as you can see, I'm just flying around in heck right now. I just want it to be someplace where there's always going to be some ships or another, so I could use them as examples. So if I select one or just mouse over some of these other ships, you could see the customizations there. To do those, we do have to do some XML editing. We have to export our overview as an XML file. Do a little bit of editing there, and it's going to be a little bit more complicated than just these basic color tags. And then we have to import them again. So in order to do that, what you want to do is open up your overview menu and choose Export Overview Settings. And then when you export them, don't even worry about the settings for the different tabs. None of the stuff that we can customize is really in there. The things that get saved with the settings for the tabs themselves are things like what appear in the tab. You know, the objects that you set to either appear or not appear within that tab. That's what is determined by the by what gets exported with these things. So I just deselect them all, just so that my XML file isn't cluttered with all this other extraneous stuff. And just keep global overview settings selected. Just keep that checked. Name your file something like original XML, original settings, and then press export. And then it'll tell you here exactly where your XML file was exported to. So remember that location, and then you want to go back and open that file in a text editor. Now, one moment while I actually open that file myself in a text editor. And the file is always going to be in your E folder. Well, if you're in Windows, it's going to be in your E folder under your Documents folder. And it's going to be in a folder called Overview underneath your E folder. So it's really easy to find. It's right, the Overview folder is right beside your Chat Logs folder, for example, and your Capture folder, where your screen captures are stored. So what you want to do is, let me move this over to the stream area so you could actually see it. Just open it in a text editor. If you have like a programming text editor, quote, quote, then it will actually be a lot better for you, because it's going to format everything really nice and pretty and give you, some sort of other tools like being able to collapse things and stuff. But you could actually edit this in Notepad if you really wanted to. It's just a text document. It's just a text file. And you'll see that it's called original-settings.xml, which is what we called it. Now, first of all, before we actually go in and make some changes to this, I'm going to make some changes right here that I don't really want you to worry about at the moment. I'll go over exactly why I have to make these changes later on in the class. And there. You won't have to do what I just did when you first export your overview. You only have to do that if you make certain edits to it, which I obviously did, because you could see that I've got these special colors and multiple lines and so on. So that edit I'll go over later on in the class, and it's only something that you might have to do after you make your first edits. Okay, and Sakiger is saying in the class.uni chat channel that stock Windows 7 Notepad did not break it up into lines, but WordPad did. Okay, so that says to me, well, for those of you who understand what it means, that it probably just has line feeds and not carriage returns in it. So it's probably like a Unix setting, or it has Unix line breaks, which in fact, let me just show you. That's what it'll look like when you view it under Notepad. So it looks like what I said earlier might not be entirely true. It's not going to be easily editable under just Notepad. You'll need to get something that's a little bit smarter. For those of you who don't know what to use, you could try it under WordPad like he suggested. This application that I'm using right now is just called Notepad++. So if you want to go ahead and try to use this text editor, just do a search for it. It's free. I believe it's I don't remember if it's open source or not, but it's definitely like GPL or something, so it's free to use. And it's a really nice editor. I use it for just pretty much everything. And it will correctly open the file for you and give all this nice formatting. I didn't make any changes to the default settings at all. It just by default opens a .xml file and makes it look like this. Okay, so what do we need to change? Actually, what I should probably do, I'm going to close this, and I'm going to import my original unedited settings. That wasn't it. So that you know exactly what the default looks like. Oh, actually, those were it. No, they weren't. Interesting. Well, okay then, never mind that. I'm just going to go ahead and go back to this and show you what, I'll just edit this so that you can see what it looked like originally. But essentially, this was all just blank, and this was all just blank. This part here was actually what it looked like. Now, what we want to do is this section right here is the entire section for, well, the global settings, which we just exported. And the things that we want to look for are these label sections. So if you see here, starting at ship labels, there's a section label here, and you could see what the label is for by looking at the part type value. So this is part, name equals type, and value equals something. This label section here is for the pilot name. This label section here, well, I copied it, so it's still the pilot name. This label section here is for the corporation. This label section down here is for the alliance. If we scroll down, we have a section for the ship type and the ship name. And this none section here, that is for, if you go back to your overview and open up the overview settings and take a look at the, not the columns, where was it? Oh yeah, I was there in the first place. It was under ships. These are basically where those sections appear, and there's a last section here where you could put additional custom text. It says additional text show only when corp ticker is available. That's what that last thing is, and most people don't use that. I don't use it myself. But if you ever want to experiment with that last field, it's essentially what it is there. So if we tab back over to our Notepad++, we could see that they associate with those sections. Okay, so how do we edit them? Well, if you take a look back at the edits that I made before, it looks pretty cryptic for those people who are not familiar with this format. But this ampersand LT semicolon and this ampersand GT semicolon, they basically are translated into, I'll just put it into a new line here. But they're going to translate into a less than sign, which is what the LT stands for, and a greater than sign, which is what the GT stands for. And the B in the middle of them just translates into a B. So what this value actually will translate to in the end is what some of you might recognize as the HTML markup for bold. And then down here we have the ampersand LT semicolon, which translates into a less than. We have a /B. And then we have an ampersand GT semicolon, which translates into the greater than sign. So what we actually have here is, well, there's like the text in the middle, which is actually the pilot's name. So what we have here is actually the instructions to tell it to put a bold markup around the pilot's name, which is exactly how it shows up. Ah, I actually did get it undone. Cool. So that when we actually import those settings back in, actually, what did I call? I called this one global only. That's the one that I'm actually editing. So when I import those changes and take a look at a ship in space, let me go ahead and close that. Then we can see that, whoops, the name is in bold. It's actually like, you know, a darker or a thicker white than the rest of the text. And the same thing here. For example, what I wanted to do was, okay, we got to find somebody who is in, there we go. See, his corporation name or ticker is in light green. Is this kind of corp? No. In any case, we saw that the corporation ticker was in light green. If your goal, like mine was, is to set the person's corporation ticker in light green, then the HTML markup that you want to put around it was identical to what we saw with the tab customization. We want to put a color equals light green around the corporation name, and then put a /color on the other side of it. So what we want to do is look for the corporation section for the label, and then with the pre-value, we want to put, well, we also wanted to put the corporation in square brackets, so it's going to look more like that. So after that opening square bracket, we have our less than sign, ampersand LT semicolon. Then we have the color equals light green. Then we have our greater than sign, ampersand GT semicolon. Then we'll just let Eve itself put in the corporation name. And then in our post value for that label section, we have our ampersand LT for the less than sign, slash color, and then our ampersand GT for the greater than sign. And that's basically it. Before we actually did any of this editing, it just looked like that. Because by default, what Eve will do is just put square brackets around it, and that's all it'll do. So this extra code here was the code to make it generate this to add the light green color to the corporation. Okay. Now, some of you might be thinking, why do we have to use this ampersand LT semicolon and so on? Why can't we just put that? And the reason is just plain and simple, it won't work. It has to be that and oops that for it to actually work, because for those of you who know about it, it goes through a single translation before it becomes before it's evaluated to an actual markup. So it's essentially the same way. You just got to make sure to modify these less than and greater than signs into these codes. LT or ampersand LT semicolon ampersand GT semicolon. Okay. Now I'll just pull these out so that I don't corrupt my file. Now, to put things onto a new line, that's that code right there. That's what I had, the code that I had to actually manually reinsert later on. So this ampersand number 10 or ampersand hash sign 10 semicolon, that tells it to add a new line character, essentially. So if you want to separate things by line, like for example, I put it here so that every time it displays the pilot name, in bold by the way, because we have the other markup there, right after it shows the pilot name, it puts a new line there, so that whatever follows the pilot name is going to appear on the next line. And it's as simple as that. And yeah, again, those of you who recognize the code, 10 is the ASCII code for a line feed character. But if you have no idea what that means, don't worry, just remember ampersand hash 10 semicolon, that adds a new line. And you see that I did it again here, except this time I put it into the pre-value before this opening open parentheses. And the reason for that is because I wanted whatever was above it to display all in one line and then start a new line before it displays the ship type. And the reason I did it that way was because if you notice, the thing that might show just before it is alliance. Well, what if the ship that you're looking at isn't in an alliance? If it isn't, then Eve doesn't even show that alliance tag, and so it's not going to show anything in here. So if this new line were up here instead, it wouldn't have brought it down to a new line because just because he wasn't in an alliance. So that's something that you might have to just keep an eye out for. If we had that new line character up here, then it'll seem to work okay every so often, or for the most part, but then all of a sudden you'll take a look at somebody who's not in an alliance, and then it'll look weird. It won't actually bring the rest of this info down to the next line. Okay, and those are the basics. Everything else really is just details built upon those and some things to watch out for because of existing bugs, basically. So for now, are there any questions on what we've talked about so far? Yeah, those of you who've worked with HTML and or XML before, this is probably like, you know, super easy to you, but I'm going into it in some pretty good detail for those people who might not have worked with it before. Okay, so basically you'll want to just make those changes, and then you want to go back to your overview and choose import overview settings again, or import overview settings. you didn't select it before. And then whatever file that you exported it to, I think we called it original settings. Oh, which, by the way, what I normally do after hey, there's a flashy pod. Oh well, I'm cloaked right now, so I couldn't target him anyway. Anyways, what I normally do is take that original settings file, make a copy of it, and then call it something like customize settings. And then I edit the customized settings file. So, assuming we've edited the customized settings file, we'll go to Import Overview Settings in our Overview menu. Look for Customized Settings. Again, we only exported Global Overview Settings, so that's the only thing to select there. And then we'll just press Import. And that's how to get back in. Let's see, well, there's one question. Yeah, Celine asked, these were basics. Yeah, if you're not familiar with editing XML or HTML previously, then it might seem a little bit confusing to you. But just take a look at some examples that people have posted. In fact, I'll go ahead and post my exact setup into the thread for this class after this class is over, and you could just take a look at exactly what it looks like. I'll post two things: what it looked like before I did any editing, you know, just the basic default values, and then I'll post what it looks like after I did the editing. But yeah, that's for those people who have done it. They're probably sitting in this class going, okay, yeah, go on, what else? Nair asks, other labels aren't possible, like velocity, distance, and so on. Maybe, maybe not. Nobody has been able to add those labels as far as I know, because if they are possible, then they are undocumented. So you could try to fiddle around with it and see if you can coax it to showing something that might be undocumented, but it's essentially just complete guesswork because it's undocumented. So yeah, if those are possible, then CCP hasn't said how or given any examples how, and there's no examples that we could really work with. If somebody actually finds examples of things like that showing up in the brackets, then definitely let me know, because I'm totally interested myself. Oh, and by the way, even though we changed it for brackets, it also is modified for the mouse over in the overview. So if you mouse over a ship just in your overview, you'll see those modifications as well. Okay, I haven't seen any other questions, so let's move on to caveats, things to watch out for. When you import any edits that you make, they won't show up right away. You have to actually switch tabs. Well, that's the easiest way to do it. There's probably other ways that you could force the update to whatever you just imported, but all I do is just switch tabs, and switching tabs will immediately apply any changes that you made to your import. So right after you import and then you try to take a look at your changes, they won't be there until you actually force that update by switching tabs. Another thing to watch out for: when you go to your Open Overview settings and your Ships tab, there's a checkbox here at the very top that says Hide Corp Ticker if Pilot is in Alliance. There is a bug with that where the easiest way to reproduce the bug is just export your overview settings and then immediately import them again. And this will always be checked when you do that. Even if you unchecked it, then exported your settings, then imported your settings again, it'll be checked again when you do that. So if you want your overview to be set up so that this is deselected, every time you do an import, even if it's not a customized import, every time you import some overview settings, you'll want to go back to your overview settings, ships, and make sure that it's deselected. Because until they fix this bug, it's going to automatically select it again for you. Which is why earlier when I nobody's at the gate now. There's someone. Which is why earlier when I did some mouse overs, it only showed the alliance and not the corp. Now it's showing correctly. It's showing both the corp and alliance. And it's because of that silly little bug that deselects that checkbox. Another thing to watch out for, and this one is kind of annoying, but unfortunately I have not found a way around it yet, is that by default, let's take a look at a ship. By default, if somebody is in an alliance, which nobody here is, okay, this guy's in an alliance, and he moved anyways. By default, the overview shows the alliance in angle brackets. So it'll show like the less than sign and the greater than sign. And yes, somebody found me and decloaked me. I'm and he's following me. Actually, go ahead and keep following me because we could see perfectly well the overview, or actually the bracket changes as an example. Hey, there's that capsule again. One sec. Darn it. Get out of invuln. Okay, this will be interesting. He's not moving. No, he's invuln. How do you get back into invuln by just staying on the grid? Oh, because he jumped through. Darn. Just a half second later, I could have gotten a flashy capsule kill. Anyway, back to the class. Yeah, go ahead and keep following me so we could show this. But anyways, the third thing that you need to watch out for. This ivy right here by default is usually not in parentheses. It's usually inside of angle brackets. Oh yeah, duh, I totally forgot to turn my sensor booster on. Darn it. Because I was expecting to stay cloaked for this entire class. In any case, I'm turning it on just in case that happens again. So, what was I saying? Yeah, this ivy normally is in angle brackets. If you make any edits to it, it completely messes up. You need to change it away from You need to change it away from angle brackets. So here in the alliance section, the alliance label section, instead of angle brackets, I changed it to parentheses so that it doesn't mess up. I know why it messes up, but I can't find a way to get around it messing up so that it actually shows alliances in angle brackets again. So unless you actually find a way to fix it, I just recommend putting it either in something else, or just put like dashes on the outside. And here's a flashy shuttle. He's out of my range. Oh, because he's warped away. Anyways, like for example, let's go ahead and do a quick edit so that you could see it take place in real time. Let's change it to just a dash instead. So all we'll do is put the dash here. This is in the alliance section, the alliance label section. We're going to put a dash, and then here's our markup to change the name to the text to light blue. I'm just going to save it, go into here, and go to Import Overview Settings. The file I'm editing is actually globalonly.xml. So I'll select global only, import my global overview settings, and you see that it hasn't changed yet. Even if I click on other ships and click back on Hofstadter, it hasn't changed yet. If I switch to a new tab, there, it has changed. However, you don't see his corp anymore because of the gotcha number, I think it was number 2. It selected this again. So I got to go there and deselect it, and now you see his corp tag. And you see Ivy with just a dash on the outsides. Okay, so those are the 3 gotchas that I've found so far. Definitely, if you find anything else, any little quirks or anything like that, let everybody know so that they are aware of it. So yeah, any other questions, feel free to type them into the class.uni chat channel. I will scroll back a bit just to make sure I didn't miss any questions. But feel free to type out any questions that you might have, or if something just went totally over your head and you need some clarification on it, say so. For those of you who have done this kind of editing before, if there's like any other little tricks and tips you might want to tell the rest of the class, feel free to type that out as well. Okay, so Sagiker asks, so the double translate of ampersand, amp, lt, etc. doesn't work. That's on the original export on a default install. And yes, it doesn't work. If you put that, because I'll just type it in here. So if you originally perform your export, you will see this around the alliance tag, and that is the code that actually translates to that. Well, it actually translates. Well, okay, it translates to that. But anyways, what you'll want to do is just replace that completely. Instead of that, which is the angle bracket that encloses it, I just replaced it completely with that. However, if somebody actually finds out a way to keep it an angle bracket, then definitely let people know. Laser Shark has a suggestion. Laser, have you actually tried that and had it work, or is that just a suggestion to for people to give, just give it a try? Okay, so it's something that I'll probably go ahead and try after the class, or I'll try during the class if people are really interested. I'll just keep the stream running. Oh, and Sagecur, by the way. Cool. I'll call you that from now on, if I remember. So any other questions? Does anybody have? Jess, it's not a question, but it has a statement. This looks like a very handy trick for scouts to quickly see info. And yeah, it's definitely handy if you can actually just, mouse over something. And you see all this info to begin with. It's just formatted better. Colors will stand out more easily and so on, so that you could get the info that you need more quickly, and you don't have to sit there for an extra few seconds trying to decipher this one long line of all the same color text. Let's see, searching for more questions. Looks like we caught them all. Hofstadter asks, how do you customize damage notifications? I haven't been able to customize damage notifications yet. I'm not sure if there is a file where it can be customized, because I haven't seen any place in the game where you could actually change. Like, the reason why we're able to customize these two things was, first of all, the tabs has a setting where you can actually change the name of it, and it just so happens that HTML markups will work within its name. And we can customize the brackets, because it's something that we can actually export and then edit and then import again. So I don't know of any place where you could either modify either in-game or as an export-import phase or process the damage the damage notifications. If somebody does find out, though, then again, let us know. Hey, there's Sagecur, and I could just quickly mouse over him and see he's in E-UNI IV. Anarail asks, can you make uppercase characters in the tab titles? Yeah, you can. That's just my style. I kept them lowercase. I just keep my tabs lowercase, but lots of people use uppercase in their overviews. If we go to here and just make this capital TAR, or mixed case TAR if we roll into, as soon as we hit apply, it changes to mixed case TAR. We could change it to ooh colors and press apply, and the tab is called ooh colors in red because we still have our red markup around it. So yeah, the lowercase is just my preference for the tabs, and 3 letters is also my preference for the tabs. SageClear says he's confused about the bug. He has the angle brackets on the alliance when he mouses over me and Hoff. The bug? The only thing that I've shown so far that was a bug is in the ships tab where it automatically hides the corp ticker again. So is that what you meant? Because when you hide the corp ticker, the alliance will still show up, and it will show up as angle brackets unless you change the defaults. What the bug is that for those people who don't want to hide their corp ticker, who have this deselected so that they could see both the corp and the alliance name when they mouse over a pilot, if you export some settings and then import them again, or actually it's just the import phase, if you import settings, then it will automatically select this again, even though the XML file tells it to not select it. It's actually up here. Hide corp ticker equals false. That is supposed to actually deselect this when you import that XML file again, but there's a bug in that it selects it again anyway. So if you want it deselected, you have to go back in and manually deselect it. Let's see, SageClear says he meant the discussed inability to have angle brackets around the alliance. By default, it will have those angle brackets. Were you able to go in and edit that alliance section? Let's see here. Yeah, here in the alliance section, and still have angle brackets here? Because if you have, then I definitely want to know how you did it. Because I have not been able, like for example, with it, let's go ahead and try it right now. I saved this with specific angle brackets, which should not work, but let's go ahead and give it a try. If we import overview settings, it'll say file not valid, because those angle brackets in here makes this importer believe that it's an invalid file, that it doesn't have the proper formatting. If we could change them back to ampersand, oh gosh, what was it again? Somebody typed it out here. It was ampersand AMP semicolon GT actually this one would be LT semicolon, and the one at the end was the AMP GT semicolon. This is what it would have looked like if we didn't change the defaults, if we just added the color in between it. And let's go ahead and import that. Close that, import, and then change tabs so that it updates. Oh, hello, it does have angle brackets. And then if I go to open my overview settings and deselect that again, let's see if it works correctly. Okay, but when it shows your corporation, now instead of angle brackets around a colored IVY, it shows E-UNI correctly, but then it shows less than, color, greater than, light blue, greater than, IV, less than, / color, and so on. And now it does not show correctly. And just put it against a dark background so you could see that better. So it looks like it will show correctly if you're not showing, if you hide the corp ticker for people in an alliance, and then it's not showing correctly anymore now. Let me see if I click away from him and click back onto him. No, now it's not. Now it's showing the actual markup. So that is the glitch that I encountered, and I have not yet found a way to get around this. Because normally what I'm hoping to be able to do is, show the outer angle brackets, but then translate the inner angle brackets as markup. So, and for those of you who are wondering, even if I put spaces around it so that it makes it unambiguous that it's supposed to be markup, still has the same problem. So import overview settings, import. Let's switch tabs to refresh. Mouse over him again. Again, we see there are spaces around it. It does show Ivy undercolored. But then if we look at other people here in the overview, sometimes it doesn't show correctly. Like here, for Juice Me, we could see markup instead of. So I'm not sure why it's like working sometimes, not working other times. But if anybody could find a way to actually, you know, like permanently fix that, definitely let people know. Everybody's custom overviews that I've seen, when they make a modification to this alliance portion, they just replace it with something else. Like in my example, I just replaced it with parentheses. But like I showed earlier, you could replace it with like dashes or, you know, anything you want, just not angle brackets unless you find a way around this little glitch. Now that I changed it back, I'm just going to import it back. Force an update. There, it's showing in braces now. But then again, I've got to go to Open, Overview Settings, deselect that, so that I could see both the Corp and the Alliance. So I didn't see any other questions so far. So last call for questions. Oh, Alan's asking. Oh, actually, a couple questions. Nair asks, can I double a field display ship type twice on 2 lines? And unfortunately, no. What this actually does, actually, I just thought of a way that that might work. So you're thinking like, let's see, what's your example? Display ship type twice. What would happen if we actually duplicate this entire section on the markup? If we have ship type showing twice. Let's import that and find out. Switch tabs to update. Click on someone. Yep, there we go. Basilisk, basilisk. So yes, it looks like you can do it if you actually want the same thing to show up in more than one location. So it looks like it's keying in on this value right here. If this value says ship type, then it'll just replace whatever is in this section with the actual ship type. And that's why I was saying earlier that, you know, maybe there's some undocumented way to show something like damage. Well, okay, that wouldn't really work for a ship. What other aspects of a ship can you find out? I'm not quite sure. But yeah, these are like per ship values. So ship type is a per ship value. But there might be something other than ship type or alliance or corporation or pilot name that will be displayable in here. But if there is, they are undocumented, and I don't know. I haven't seen any other values that people have just like discovered. Ah, somebody was saying velocity. What happens if we put a velocity in there? This is the kind of experimentation you'll need to do to try to find those undocumented features, if they exist at all. Which is the tedious part, is that, you know, they might not even exist, but you'll have to just go through them and test them and find out anyway. And yeah, it looks like there is no. Actually, it's still showing. No, it's not showing the double anymore. But yeah, it's not showing anything for velocity. So there is no key value called velocity in there. But it was worth a try. Let's see. Ellen was asking, which was the command for second line? The command for second line was, or for new line actually, is this one right here. Ampersand #10 semicolon. For those of you who know that 10 is the ASCII number for the new line character, it's pretty easy. You just got to remember the ampersand hash, and then of course end all of these with semicolons. This less than ends with a semicolon. Actually, it begins with the ampersand, ends with a semicolon. So this code also begins with an ampersand, ends with a semicolon, and the #10 in the middle means new line character. We want a new line character there. Somebody was saying sig radius. Let's put sig radius here and import that. See if it does anything. Switch tabs to update. Select some. There he is. Somebody, and yeah, nothing new. Nothing new being shown. So sig radius. You could try things like, you know, the full word signature radius or etc. Let's see, more questions. Ellen asks, is there a way to add more than 5 tabs? Unfortunately, no. These tabs here are not actually part of the export, so we can't, you know, just add a new section here and have a brand new tab up here, unfortunately. And the place where you do modify the tabs, you know, in your overview settings, overview tabs tab, there's nothing here that says like add another row. So you're just limited to these 5 rows. It would be nice if we could right click here and choose add new row. Over here we could choose add tab. We could type test and it just says too many tabs. You can only have 5 tabs. So unfortunately it's something that CCP will have to add, or somebody has to find a way to hack it. Oh, by the way, speaking of hacking, CCP has actually stated that these overview modifications, that's bugging me. Let me show the corporation again. These overview modifications are in fact allowed, but they are still undocumented, which means essentially that they could break them at any time they wish. They could totally change the format or the you know, basically the format of that XML file, of what you exported and imported at any time without telling anybody, and all of a sudden all of your customized brackets and well, probably wouldn't affect these tabs, but all your customized brackets will suddenly not work correctly. But it is not against the EULA to do it, is my main point. Scanning for more questions. Inariel asks, do quotation marks work as typed? And I could tell you right off the bat, no, they won't work if you if you want to enclose something as quotes and you put quotes there. It's not going to work because it's going to treat what's in here as a value, and then the rest of it is just going to be a syntax error. However, you should be able to. Anybody know what the code is for quotation marks? I'm thinking like 34, but that might be hex code. What would 34 evaluate to? Like 58 or something like that? When all else fails, look it up on the web. Oh, okay, there's actually a written shorthand for it. So Laser Shark says he believes it's ampersand, quotes, semicolon. Let's go ahead and give that a try. Let's see if we could put the pilot's name in. Actually, let's go put the ship name in quotation marks. Because right now, it uses a single quote as the delimiter for a ship name. Let's see if we could put a double quote around the ship name instead. So all I did was replace that single quote with this markup. I'll go to import, switch tabs, and look. And yep, there we go. It's in double quotes. Pinkamena Diane Pi. Or Pinkamena probably, Diane Pi. And yeah, since 34 works, you could probably put a hash 34 there instead if you really wanted to. But it looks like that that and quote semicolon will work just fine. In fact, I'm going to keep my overview that way. I like the double quotes better than the single one. So, and I'm just going to deselect that again so that it shows the corp as well. Any more questions? It looks like, well, let me briefly go back and make sure that I caught everyone. If I missed your question, you could probably see where I'm scrolling on the stream. If I miss your question, feel free to type it out again. But yeah, it looks like I caught all questions. So again, since the stream is a little bit delayed, I'll wait another 10 to 15 seconds to make sure I did catch everybody's questions. How come Hofstadter in the mouse over? Yeah, sometimes it doesn't update right away. Like if you'll notice that if I mouse over Hofstadter in the brackets, it shows both his corp and alliance, but if I mouse over him in the overview, it still just shows alliance. That's just an update bug with the UI, basically. Inariel asks, what about changing NPC items? As far as I could tell, you can't really do anything with NPC stuff because that stuff it's not something that's exported with the overview. So, like, I'm mousing over Minimatar Customs Commander, mousing over Stargate Eyster. It doesn't even seem like they are bolded, so it's not treated as pilot name. Whereas if you look at, say, Hofstadter, you'll see Hofstadter, his name itself is bolded. So unless there's some undocumented thing in here that, instead of Sigradius there's like NPC, then there's, we have to find out if there is something, or we have to find out what this value is if it even exists to be able to modify it. And even then it's just going to be probably just this whole word. Okay, so 10 more seconds for any final questions, if anybody has any. And yeah, we went a few minutes over, but that's actually a good thing. That means that people are asking questions, and hopefully anyways getting them answered, so that they know all the little details that they need to know. Alrighty then, that is the end of this class. I'll go ahead and close it out now. Thank you for attending. I hope that everybody was able to get something from it. Let's see some more shiny, flashy brackets and overviews out there. And actually, Nair says, I assume the green background on your brackets, that belongs to normal overview settings. Yeah, for those of you who haven't taken a good look at the overview settings yet, that is just in appearance. For background, you could set different backgrounds for any of these items. So for the green background, that's actually the pilot is in your corporation. You could just right click on this and choose a color, and you could toggle it to blink. So if I wanted my corp mates to have a flashy green background for some ungodly reason, then there, now they have a flashy green background. But yeah, those are just basic overview settings. Let me turn that off. So yeah, in the appearance tab is where you could customize the color tag, the background, and you could also customize EWAR. You could show what types of EWAR are being applied to you here, or you could enable and disable it, showing you what types of EWAR are being applied. Okay, again, I'll officially close out the class. If you have any other later questions or anything, feel free to actually the best thing to do would probably just to post it on the, oh my gosh, I just realized this entire class I've been hitting my push to talk button, but I don't really need to because I'm on a stream, not on Mumble. Anyway, if you have any further questions or comments, the best thing to do would be to go over to the class announcement thread and post it in there, so that other people can see what the questions are, and also, if I or somebody else posts an answer to it, they could see the answer to those questions. But if you have any questions, if you find out any more neat tricks that you could do with this, feel free to post it there as well. And eventually I'm going to turn this into an official class. I'm going to write up a nice, neat syllabus. And if anybody has more info or more neat tricks to add to it, I'll probably add it to the syllabus as well. Jess has a question. Can you move EWAR info to first column besides the icon? I don't think so, because I've never seen anything in the overview settings that allows you to modify where the EWAR shows up. So yeah, the only thing I've actually seen in the entire thing that has to do with EWAR is just enabling and disabling it with these checkboxes. So it looks like the answer is no. It's always going to show in the same place. Which is why in my overview, if you could see my overview setup, I always have this little blank area right here, just to be able to allow stuff to be shown there without it getting overwritten by text. Okay, so again, I'll go ahead and close out. Thanks all for attending, and I'll see you all around.